Welcome to College Football Addiction. Right now in the Big 12, there are really 4 teams that are alive for the Big 12 championship. And some have better odds, some have better possibilities, and some are a little more faint. A little more help is needed on their end to get through. Right now, BYU and Iowa State clear the rest of the field, being undefeated in conference. Kansas State sitting there with just one conference loss. That loss to BYU, who's ahead of them. And then Colorado also with just one conference loss. That loss being to Kansas State, who is just one ahead of them. Now, if it were over right now, it's pretty clear cut. You've got 2 undefeated teams. BYU and Iowa State would be in. We would have to go to a quick tiebreaker to try and figure out who was home and away, but it's a neutral site, so who cares, right? Who gets to wear this jersey? Who gets to call the coin toss? I don't know that matters too much. But that's not as clear-cut as things get. And things are about to get really hairy in the Big 12, and we'll talk about all of that. We've been doing this for the ACC for several weeks. Some people have asked us to do this for other conferences, so we are doing it for the other Power 3 conferences, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC. If you like this, if you want me to continue doing these breakdowns, let me know down in the comments. Hit the subscribe button. You don't have to watch all the content. We do a lot of stuff around the SEC, Big 10, ACC. We try to cover everything. But if you like this, if you want the week-by-week breakdown of who you need to cheer for, what's going on, how your team can make it, then do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Now, it's clean right now, but it's not going to stay clean in the Big 12 because we know that Iowa State and Kansas State play each other in the final week of the season. Now, is that winner automatically in? Is BYU relatively safe? Those are the questions we're going to answer. And then the really big one, can Colorado still get in this thing? They've got the 4th best odds, and they're right now in 4th place in the Big 12. But can Coach Prime, can Dion and Shador and Travis, can they get in and then maybe play their way into the college football playoff? What happens if 3 teams end up having 1 loss? Right now, you've got Colorado with a loss and Kansas State with a loss. What if they beat Iowa State and you've got undefeated BYU and then 3 one-loss teams there for second place? Who goes? If 3 teams do finish with 1 loss, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. We're not trying to bury the lead here. Here's what happens. You look at their head-to-head records. Well, because they haven't all 3 played each other, you would go on past that tiebreaker. Next, you look at their win percentage against all common conference opponents. I don't know that you know how to do that just yet because we haven't seen who all has played who all. But I think that would end the way that it's sitting right now, and you'd have to go to your next couple of tiebreakers, your win percentage against the highest placed common opponent in the standings because they didn't all play or lose to the same teams. I think that would end pretty abruptly just right there. And then you'd have combined winning percentage in conference games of your conference opponents. That's the one that it would get stuck on. That's how we would decide who the second place team is in this conference. Now, you could also have the really wild scenario where BYU drops a game and then you've got 4 first-place teams, all with 1 loss. What they would do is they would run through that same scenario that I just told you. They'd find a first-place team, and then they'd run through that scenario again to find a second-place team. Now, what it would come down to is, again, that 4th tiebreaker in the Big 12. And this is really what all the conferences end up doing. They basically say, hey, you're undefeated in conference, or you have 1 loss in conference and 2 other people have 1 loss in conference. We're not really able to split you guys up, and you didn't all play each other. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, you went 8-1 in conference. Well, what were the records of your other of the 9 teams you played? Oh, the records of the 9 teams you played had a 50% winning percentage. And then the record of these teams that this other team played had a 45% winning percentage. Well, we say then if that's the case, your 8-1 is 5% more impressive than this other 8-1 over here. Now, you may think that's fair. You may not think that's fair. I don't care. I didn't set these Big 12 rules. But that's what it comes down to. Whoever has the toughest Big 12 schedule with the same record is the team that ends up going on. I don't really know a better way to do that. It is what all 4 major conferences do. I haven't researched it, but I'd assume it's what the Group of 5, the Pac-2, does as well. Tiebreakers of the Pac-2 would be kind of funny at this point to try and figure out, obviously. But I believe that that's essentially what you come up with, right? If everybody goes undefeated or everybody has 1 loss, whose 1 loss is the most impressive? Who had the hardest schedule? Whose schedule was the hardest to get to that 1 loss or that undefeated record? And so where would that leave us? Well, right now, Colorado needs help. They certainly have to win out. They probably need a second loss from Kansas State. They need a loss from one of the other teams, maybe a loss from both of them. Kansas State certainly has their path to try and get there, but They need Colorado to lose another one so that their win against Iowa State, if they get that later in the year, just totally eliminates Iowa State and it's a head-to-head. What if BYU drops one along the way? Well, we've come up with a who to cheer for so that we take all of the guesswork out of this. And you're more than welcome to just screenshot this when I throw the picture up on the screen. First, I do want to just quickly tell you about our Discord. I literally set this up over the last week. I set up a Discord just so that we could chat in there. It's free. There's no cost to join it. I'm not asking you for anything. It doesn't send me your email or your real name or anything like that. I just really enjoy some of your comments. I really enjoy some of the banter that we've had in the comments, but sometimes it's hard to continue that chatter outside of just that one-time video. And so I'd love to set up a community where at College Football Addiction, we can just be chatting, whether it's about questions you have on this, whether it's about certain, topics or games that are happening live. I'd love for that community to really grow. I really appreciate the community that we have here. And I'm so appreciative of all those who subscribe and comment on the videos and like the videos and watch the videos. But YouTube and Google, they don't do a great job of alerting me or telling me when there are comments or replies to comments. And so I miss so much. And I'm not telling you not to comment, but I'd love if we could continue some of that conversation over in the Discord. So the link is in the description if you'd like to check it out. So when we look at the Big 12 schedule this week, Texas Tech and Iowa State play. Iowa State obviously wants to win. Everyone else, when you look at Colorado, Kansas State, and BYU, should want Iowa State to lose, drop them down a peg, and give other teams a chance to get in. When you look at Kansas State versus Houston, it's the same thing. Kansas State wants to win. Everyone else should want Kansas State to pick up their second conference loss. Arizona versus UCF. Now, Iowa State only has UCF on their schedule, so they should cheer for them. BYU has both, but they should want what's worst for Iowa State, so they should be cheering for Arizona. Now, Colorado has both, but they're more likely to be in a tiebreaker with Iowa State down the road, and so they should be cheering for Arizona, in my opinion. For Kansas State, I don't think it really matters. Since they don't play either, it's probably better for Arizona since BYU is on the UCF train. They should want what's worst for BYU. Then you look at Arizona State and you look at Oklahoma State. Kansas State wants Arizona State to win because they play them. BYU and Colorado play both, but again, they should want what's worst for Kansas State. So they need Oklahoma State to win, get their first conference win of the year. Iowa State doesn't play either, so they should also want what's worst for Kansas State and thus cheer for the Oklahoma State Pokes. Lastly, TCU and Baylor. Now, BYU, Iowa State, and Colorado all play Baylor, so they should cheer for them. And Kansas State doesn't play either, but they should want everybody else to get knocked down a peg, so they should very clearly play for TCU. So here's the thing. If Iowa State and BYU win out, none of this matters. The thing is that neither have looked invincible when you look at their last few games. 2 weeks ago, they both needed miracle finishes against UCF and Oklahoma State to stay unbeaten. So though chaos is not imminent, it very well could be coming. Again, what about Coach Prime in Colorado? Their path is absolutely the toughest, but they can't control any of that. They just need to focus on winning. Everyone else somewhat controls their own destiny. Colorado needs BYU to slip up and maybe even slip up twice. They could use a KSU falter along the way and or an Iowa State loss. As we get closer, we can sort of estimate what Colorado's chances are and what they need more precisely to happen. This week, with a couple of teams having bye weeks, there's less going on, but make sure to stay tuned in because next week with the Holy War, Colorado taking on Texas Tech and other really big games, it will get wild. There's craziness going on not only in the Big 12, but also in the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10. You can click the videos, any of them, on the screen right now to check all of that out.